Exposed, my daughter's shocking decision to sell our $3 million ranch, unveiling a $16,000 lifeline. Jack Thompson stood in his kitchen, a cup of coffee cradled in his hands, staring out at the vast expanse of rolling Texas hills behind the ranch. For 52 years, this land had been his heartbeat. Generations of Thompsons had poured their sweat and soul into these fields, raising cattle and growing crops. What had once been a daily ritual became an unyielding sense of purpose. But that morning, the air felt heavy, as if a storm were rolling in, and it had nothing to do with the weather. The heavy wooden door swung open, and in walked his daughter, Emily, her voice shaking with purpose as she revealed her plan to sell the family ranch. Jack's heart dropped. "What do you mean, sell?" The words came out more like a gasp than a question. How could she even consider it? "This place, our family, means everything." "I know, Dad," Emily replied, her determination flickering under the weight of his disbelief. "But I need to help children in need. I can't ignore the calling I feel." There it was, the stark contrast between her dreams and his reality. Jack felt a swell of anger, intermingled with despair. The ranch wasn't just property. It was legacy, history, identity. Days turned into tense discussions, each encounter leaving Jack feeling more defeated. The ranch was cultivated with love, its soil woven with the ambition of past generations. But Emily challenged that, wanting to break free, to seize her own future. "Why must I sacrifice my dreams to hold on to yours?" she cried, frustration spilling over. Each argument was like a knife, cutting deeper into his resolve. As he tried to explain the value of their heritage, resentment simmered, boiling beneath the surface. Then, the world tilted on its axis. Emily received the devastating news. A medical diagnosis that came with soul-crushing weight, a $16,000 bill that might as well have been $1 million. Jack's heart seized. Panic hit him like a gust of wind. Was this really happening? The ranch, which had once felt like both an anchor and a burden, now hung in the balance of saving his daughter's life. Struggling to breathe, he thought of the cattle grazing lazily in the fields, unaware of the turmoil wreaking havoc in their lives. Could he really hand it all over, the land that had shaped him, the legacy he so fiercely protected, all to safeguard Emily's dreams of a brighter future? The conflicting emotions twisted inside him. Duty to family, or the haunting fear of losing her forever? As he wrestled with his thoughts, Jack's fingers clenched around the cup, nervous energy coursing through his veins. He caught sight of Emily standing alone, her reflection in the glass framed by the Texas sunset, a warrior, yet fragile. And she was lost in dreams of helping others, of purpose beyond the ranch. Would letting go of a multi-million-dollar reminder of his lineage be the only way to save the person he loved most? Before they continued, he needed her to understand the gravity of what was at stake. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue." But the words hung in the air like smoke, swirling away from answers. There was a truth that hadn't yet been spoken, a hidden thread that could tie them together through the land they both cherished. Just as Jack began to fathom a blurry path forward, Emily's voice shattered the moment, revealing a hidden passion for fostering connections that might bridge their divide, but the implications weighed heavily on his heart. Would this revelation deepen their bond or drive them further apart? As darkness fell and shadows stretched over the ranch, Jack's mind raced. Each tick of the clock raised the stakes, leaving their future trembling in uncertainty. Jack sat in the flickering twilight, feeling the weight of Emily's dreams pressing against him with an intensity he had never fathomed before. The ranch, with its sprawling fields and sturdy barns, was not merely land, it was the embodiment of his life's work. Yet, Emily's newfound revelation, her passion for helping vulnerable children, ignited something in him that he hadn't considered before, a desire to understand her world instead of guarding his own. He took a deep breath and stood up, the old wooden floor creaking under his weight as he moved to where she stood. He needed to connect with her, to find common ground in what seemed to be an insurmountable divide. "Emily," he began, surprised at the steadiness of his own voice, "tell me more about your plans. I want to understand why this is so important to you." A flicker of relief crossed Emily's face, and for the first time, Jack felt the walls between them starting to crumble. "Dad, it's not just a dream," she said, her voice unwavering. "It's a calling. I want to create a safe space for kids who don't have anywhere else to go. I can be a bridge for them, a way to give them a shot at a better life. What I need, what I want, it's a purpose that drives me." Jack's heart wavered at her passion. Perhaps understanding meant more than just acceptance. It meant offering a piece of himself, acknowledging the fears lurking within him, fears that the ranch would fade into memory, diminishing the legacy he had built. "But what happens to our legacy, Em?" he questioned, trying to grasp his own conflicting emotions. "What about the history tied to this land? The hard work of your ancestors? It's who we are." For a heartbeat, silence enveloped them, and Jack's chest tightened. Emily's eyes sparkled with a blend of conviction and sorrow. "Dad, the land is part of our story, but if it chains us down, then what good is it? Legacy is not just about land, it's about values, connections, and the impact we have on others. Can't we honor our history by creating a new future?" Jack found himself wrestling with her words. His legacy had become a fortress, one he was reluctant to abandon, yet her vision was a lighthouse beckoning him towards something vital and monumental. The more they spoke, the more palpable the tension became. Each assertion sent his thoughts spiraling and made him question everything he had held dear. Could he really sacrifice the ranch for a purpose that, to him, felt abstract? Yet another notion flickered in the back of his mind. What if the ranch could be preserved, while also empowering Emily's dreams? The idea stirred within him. Maybe this was not about choosing between two conflicting paths, but about weaving them together. As if sensing his internal struggle, Emily took a step closer, her expression shifting from fire to compassion. "I'm not asking you to give up on our past, Dad. I want to build a bridge between what you've created and what I envision. What if we reimagined the ranch as a hub for community engagement, a place where we can both thrive?" Jack's heart raced at the possibility, a palatable blend of hope and skepticism. Could they transform their legacy while also embracing new obligations? He needed to explore every angle, assess the potential risks and rewards. Resolutely, Jack found the courage to respond. "Okay, let us consider it. But we need a solid plan, something that won't put you or our family in jeopardy." "Deal," Emily replied, excitement shining in her eyes. But in the back of his mind lingered a question: would this merging of dreams breed understanding, or would it create a fracture that could shatter everything? As Jack glanced over the ranch, he felt the winds of change whistling softly through the trees, both exhilarating and daunting. The time had come to step into the unknown, to nurture not only his daughter's hopes but perhaps discover his own uncharted aspirations. What other dreams had he buried beneath the weight of responsibility? As he looked into the horizon, the sun dipping below the hills, he felt a resolute shift within himself, one he couldn't ignore. The moment to face a truth was drawing near, but it hovered just out of reach. Tomorrow would demand answers and action. Would they be ready to take that leap together? As dawn broke over the ranch, Jack awoke with a sense of urgency coursing through him. The sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the stark reality of what lay before him. He rolled over, gripping the edge of the worn mattress, the vision of Emily's earnest face still fresh in his mind. Her dream loomed, a nebulous entity that demanded attention, while the ranch quietly whispered tales of his ancestors' sacrifices and triumphs. He swung his legs over the side of the bed, heart racing at the realization that he must take the first step towards a daunting new path. The thought of dismantling his legacy in favor of something untested gnawed at him. Yet, it was also a call to become more than just a keeper of land. Perhaps he could become a builder of dreams. With renewed determination, Jack ambled downstairs, the scent of coffee brewing beckoning him to the kitchen. As he poured himself a cup, the familiar surroundings felt different, somehow charged with potential. In every creak of the floorboards and sway of the old beams, He sensed a history he had honored for so long but also a future that awaited, begging for a chance to unfold. Jack sat at the table, staring at the ranch's western horizon visible through the window. The field stretched endlessly, a canvas of opportunity waiting for brushstrokes of innovation. He could almost see Emily's vision playing out a sanctuary for children, but could he truly reconcile it with his own boundless anxiety about change? As he sipped the hot coffee, he began to map out a plan. What would it take to merge their aspirations? He reached for a notepad, his handwriting bold and deliberate against the blank pages. Community engagement, he scribbled first, followed quickly by safe space for kids, and then financial sustainability. Each word seemed to pulse with promise. His thoughts wandered to the resources they had, the barns, the crops, the space. There was a foundation upon which they could build. He could utilize the ranch for workshops, offering mentorship programs and engagement activities for local youth. They could host gatherings that brought people together around shared goals, perhaps emerging as a facilitator for change rather than a mere backdrop of their family history. Flashes of vivid details came alive in his mind. Would they cultivate a garden where children could learn about responsibility and growth? Perhaps art and music workshops could fill the barn with laughter and creativity again. The excitement was infectious, but with each idea, a flicker of doubt crept in. Could he trust himself to lead such an initiative? Jack's heart wrestled with fear but also awoke to an ember of hope. The notion that he could transform the ranch into a dynamic space where past and future could coexist exhilarated him. He needed to step beyond his comfort zone, approach the community, and gauge their interest and support. It wasn't just about giving Emily a platform, it was about rediscovering his purpose. The day stretched ahead, full of possibilities, but it also held a lurking uncertainty that he couldn't ignore. What if his plans fell short? What if the community rejected them? As he glanced out at the horizon, nerves coursing through him, he felt a sudden urgency to act. His phone buzzed beside him, breaking the silence. A text from Emily. "Can we talk about how we're going to do this?" The moment had come for a decision. Would he share his ideas and risk further exposure of his vulnerabilities, or would he hold back, sticking to the safety of the familiar? The path was growing clearer, yet it remained riddled with complexities that demanded he dig deeper within himself. Jack took one last sip of coffee, allowing the rich flavor to fuel his resolve. The moment to confront the challenges ahead had arrived, and with that thought guiding him, he reached for his phone, ready to respond. As he typed, he felt his heartbeat quickening. Would this leap of faith lead to liberation or only deepen the rift between him and Emily? The answer lay just beyond the horizon, waiting for him to take that courageous step into the unknown. Jack stared at his phone, the text from Emily lingering like an unsolved equation dancing in his mind. Each keystroke pounded against his chest, underscoring the weight of his decision. He tapped out a response, the words tumbling forth with urgency, intertwining hope and apprehension. "Absolutely. Let us discuss our ideas this afternoon." With the message sent, he felt an immediate wave of regret wash over him. Market fluctuations aside, was it wise to dive into this venture with so many uncertainties hovering like storm clouds? He pushed back from the table, the chair scraping harshly against the wooden floor. A walk through the fields might help clear his mind. The vast expanse of land had always been a sanctuary where he could tether his thoughts. As he stepped outside, the cool morning air brushed against his face, invigorating yet unsettling. He felt the pulse of the ranch, echoing the heartbeat of generations who had come before him, and in that moment, a realization struck. He could either honor their legacy by transforming it or allow it to stagnate into mere memories. Moving through the fields, Jack began to mentally piece together the logistical aspects of turning his aspirations into reality. Budgeting would be paramount. He envisioned potential outlines for workshops but needed to define their costs. The enormity of the task set in, and he found himself questioning if he possessed the necessary business acumen. Back at the barn, Jack inspected the space, envisioning what it could become. With the afternoon sunlight filtering through dusty old windows, beams of light illuminated scattered tools and hay bales. Could they convert this place into a vibrant hub for creativity? This thought stirred a yearning inside him, a need to be a facilitator, perhaps even a mentor. He picked up a weathered hammer, feeling its heft in his hand. The inherent history was palpable. This tool had built something. Why not use it to build something new? Perhaps he didn't need to know every detail immediately. Taking that first step could ignite a chain reaction of ideas and support. Could he dare to believe in his own competence? Just then, his phone buzzed again, this time a reminder for their meeting with Emily later that day. He wandered back toward the house, deep in thought. What if this endeavor would expose vulnerabilities he couldn't bear? Images of past failures flickered through his mind, but this time they ignited more than fear. They sparked a deep-seated fire to confront those ghosts directly. The kitchen felt stifling compared to the outdoors. He pushed the window open, summoning a breath of fresh air. His heart raced as he thought of Emily's enthusiasm, her dreams waiting on his shoulders. It was time to elevate the conversation beyond simple ideas. A plan had to evolve out of this potential. He decided to reflect on his hidden skills, recalling moments of leadership he'd displayed in his youth. Perhaps he wasn't the clumsy caretaker he imagined himself to be. Could he embrace that capacity for connection, for influence on others? He needed to dig deep, facing not just the uncertainty of acceptance from the community but also his own self-doubt. While preparing for the meeting, Jack composed notes filled with objectives, timelines, and ideals. Each page he filled reinforced an emerging sense of responsibility. The ranch wasn't just a piece of land, it was a conduit for growth, for learning, a chance for him to redefine what it meant to be a steward of his heritage. As the afternoon settled in, Jack felt the tension of the impending discussion with Emily twist in his gut. He stood at a precipice, balancing the weight of legacy against the urgency of personal evolution. What if he laid bare his ambitions only to stumble? The door creaked as Emily entered, and Jack's heart raced anew. The time had come to turn aspirations into reality. He took a steadying breath. Would he possess the courage to face this crossroads with vulnerability, revealing the full extent of his visions? Or would he retreat into doubt, letting uncertainty dictate the course of their joint endeavor? With that thought, Jack braced himself for the conversation that might change everything. In that charged moment, he realized that the truth of this endeavor lay within his willingness to engage not just with Emily, but with the sheer rawness of his own potential. Would he rise to the occasion, or let fear dictate their future? The answer hovered just out of his reach, beckoning him toward an unknown fate. Jack's breath caught as Emily stepped across the threshold, her presence disarming yet invigorating. He quickly cleared his thoughts, reminding himself that vulnerability was part of the evolution he sought. This was the moment to shift from internal reflection to external dialogue. "Hey, Emily," he called, trying to sound more confident than he felt. "Thanks for coming." She smiled, a bright flicker of energy that cut through his sinking doubts. Jack led the way to the barn, the expansive space filled with potent minglings of sunlight and dust. He could almost hear the barn whispering its own testament to resilience and growth. "So, what do you have in mind for our workshops?" she asked as they settled by an old wooden table stacked with plans and sketches he had hastily put together. Jack fumbled with his notes, acutely aware of the uneven rhythm of his heart. "Right, so I've been thinking." He spread his notes out, trying to project certainty. "We can host hands-on learning experiences, like farming techniques, sustainability practices, things that connect people not just to the land, but to each other." As he spoke, he watched her eyebrows lift, her interest piqued. It gave him an unexpected jolt of confidence. He began outlining the types of classes he envisioned, each concept stitched together with careful threads of community engagement and personal growth. "Jack, this all sounds fantastic," Emily replied, a glimmer of excitement in her eyes. "But how do we make it viable? What are we talking in terms of budget?" The question sent a jolt into Jack's gut. Suddenly, all the whispers of self-doubt came crashing back. Yeah, budgeting. That's something I need to detail more," he stammered. He could feel the walls closing in, the pressure to have everything figured out, when all he could offer was ambition wrapped in vague possibilities. "Let's break it down," she suggested, her tone encouraging, but Jack could sense the weight of expectations shifting. Was she becoming skeptical? What's it going to cost to renovate the barn? Are there any grants we can apply for? Without realizing it, Jack had retreated mentally, fixating on the looming numbers and logistics. "I'll need to do some research," he replied, diverting his gaze away from her probing. I guess I thought we could just sort of dive in. Emily's expression shifted, competing strands of frustration and understanding. Diving in is great, but we need a plan. Her words struck him like a thunderclap. Plans meant accountability, responsibility, transparency. In that moment, he faced the choking reality of what was at stake. If this venture failed, it wouldn't just be him failing, it would reflect on Emily too. Ambitious dreams could dissolve all too quickly if not anchored by practical execution. What if we start small? He proposed tentatively, seeking redemption in a more manageable approach. We could do a pilot workshop, test the waters. Just one class to gauge interest. Emily's brows furrowed, and he felt a dual pulse of relief and fear. That could work, she mused, but looked still uncertain. But if we commit to it, we need to take it seriously. No half measures. The reality of her words bore down on him, clarifying the boundaries of commitment. This was about more than just him. This was the legacy of a ranch, the potential within every participant, every idea springing to life. How had he not recognized the depths of that impact until this moment? His mind raced, wrestling with the implications of this new direction. Okay, let us do it. I'll set up a workshop for, let's say, local kids. We can blend environmental education and hands-on activities, lessons learned without the confines of a classroom. As they fleshed out the specifics, Jack felt the tension ease, replaced by a flicker of hope. Horizons beyond his internal struggles began to open up. He could foster not just growth in others, but within himself as well. It was a symbiotic relationship waiting to unfold. With Emily sketching timelines and contingencies, Jack gained momentum. Despite his lingering insecurities, he found himself considering not only the tactical elements but the profound influence they could wield together. Just as they wrapped their planning, a nagging thought surfaced, one he couldn't shake. Was this really what he wanted? As he felt the boundaries of his ambitions stretch into the unknown, Jack found himself peering into a vulnerable landscape of choices. Would he truly embrace this new chapter, prepared to confront both the successes and the failures that lay ahead? The future shimmered with promise yet was tinged with uncertainty. Emily, what if setbacks happen? What if it doesn't work? I don't want to let you down. Her gaze met his, and for a heartbeat, he felt more exposed than before. Failure isn't the end, it's just part of the learning curve, Jack. We'll figure it out together. Together. That small word suddenly felt monumental, laden with trust and the possibility of shared vulnerability. But as they moved towards the door, an unsettling thought latched onto him. Would their collaboration weather the storms ahead, or would their ambitions fracture under pressure? Determined not to falter at the precipice of this new venture, Jack set his sights on the path ahead. The looming questions and uncertainties had only intensified. The answer remained nebulous, but he couldn't shake the feeling that discovery awaited them both, demanding nothing less than courage. Just before they exited the barn, a sudden gust of wind swept through, rattling the old doors. It sent a thrill through Jack, an omen or a challenge. He felt the air shift. What awaited them on the other side of commitment? The fearless leap into an unknown future had just begun. Jack leaned back against the rough wood of the barn, his heart still racing from the whirlwind of hope and fear that coursed through him. Commitment had never struck him so profoundly. It intertwined his aspirations with Emily's dreams, creating a bond both exhilarating and daunting. In the following days, every early morning felt weighted with newfound purpose. Jack pored over budgeting spreadsheets and grant applications late into the night, embarking on a mission to dig deep into the logistics of their envisioned workshops. Emily had suggested starting with a pilot program, and Jack yearned to make it not just viable but transformative. Yet, with every line item he dissected, the magnitude of his own limitations loomed larger. Each number felt like a reflection of his own internal discord. Unlike the immovable barn, he felt fragile, like a gust of wind could send him tumbling. He questioned his ability to manage not just logistics, but also the expectations climbing along with them. On one fateful evening, he submerged himself in a spreadsheet, numbers blurring into the background as his mind spiraled into doubt. What if this isn't enough? What if I can't deliver? The haunting thoughts looped through his head like a broken record, and he found himself staring into the depths of his uncertainty. This workshop wasn't just another endeavor, it had the potential to shape lives, including his own. Determined to confront these demons instead of hiding from them, he set a meeting with a local community leader renowned for her successful youth outreach programs. The uneasiness knotted his stomach as he approached, the weight of the meeting pressing into his chest. Would she see through the bravado he was trying to put on? "Jack," she greeted, her warm smile both comforting and intimidating. "I hear you have some big ideas brewing." He swallowed hard, the tension swirling within as he outlined his vision for the workshops. He spoke passionately about fostering growth and planting seeds of knowledge, feeling a flood of purpose surge through him. Yet, as he detailed the potential impact, a thread of anxiety stitched through his confidence. "But of course, we need the right funding and resources, and what if it all just crumbles?" The community leader's eyes narrowed, keenly aware of the underlying tremors of doubt. "Jack, let me tell you something. Every successful project is built on layers of vulnerability. The real work doesn't just live in your ideas, it resonates in how openly you share them and how devoted you allow yourself to be." Her words sliced through him, unearthing a stark truth he skirted around. Sharing his ambition meant bracing for the possibility of failure, but, paradoxically, it required the ability to dream boldly. "Are you willing to stretch beyond the confines of safety?" she prodded. "The only way these workshops can truly succeed is if your heart is in it, not just your mind." Jack left the meeting feeling lifted yet reeling, acutely aware that he had been playing small. Safety had become his shield, but it had also been an anchor, dragging him into a routine of mediocrity. Could he step fully into his dreams and emerge unscathed? The turmoil churned within as he returned to the barn, the shadows cast by the setting sun aligning with the lingering questions in his mind. He stood surrounded by the flickering light and nostalgia, memories of the ranch igniting an exhilarating spark. Was deeper commitment the antidote to his uncertainty? The next day, Jack delved into every element of their planning with renewed vigor. He raised his voice louder than before, addressing potential participants in the community, inviting them to share their stories and envision the future he'd just begun to comprehend. Each moment felt like stripping away layers he didn't know he'd wrapped around himself. However, with this burst of communication came the weight of vital realizations. He was building something larger than himself, stepping into uncharted territory, where the chance of failure loomed ominously. What if they faced internal backlash or community skepticism? Jack's determination solidified with each newfound connection he made, but so too did the fear of public failure. Leaving room for vulnerability opened the door for potential missteps. He questioned whether he was truly prepared for what lay beneath the polished surface of his ambition. He caught sight of Emily's supportive smile in every interaction. It pushed him forward, even as his mind wavered. The final pieces began to fall in line. The flyers were printed, the venue was set, and the timeline was closing in. The day of the pilot workshop approached with an exhilarating trepidation, promising both opportunity and confrontation. What would happen when the time came to open the door? As Jack prepared for the culmination of these stirring weeks, another unsettling thought settled in. If their first foray into this venture began to slip away, could he hold on to the courage he had desperately clung to, or would his world shatter around the seams he had so painstakingly sewn? Jack awoke to the sound of birds cutting through the still morning air, their calls both a reminder of the day ahead and a harsh contrast to the turmoil swirling in his mind. Today was the day the pilot workshop would either take flight or falter painfully. He felt the cold grip of anxiety tighten around his chest as he slipped from beneath his sheets. As he prepared for the day, he couldn't escape the nagging disbelief that all he'd built could come crashing down. Each movement felt heavy with the anticipation of failure. He chastised himself for the indecision that lingered. The trembling manifestation of his uncertainty embodied itself in the words he could barely choke out. What if he had misjudged the community's readiness or interest? Throughout the morning, Jack replayed the details in his mind, the agenda, the materials, the welcoming remarks he had meticulously crafted. He sensed that his earlier confidence stirred long before had begun to evaporate, replaced by a suffocating doubt. He paced the barn, tracing the familiar grooves in the wooden floor with his footsteps, each step echoing his inner turmoil. A faint tapping at the door jolted him from his thoughts. It was Emily. Her vibrant spirit radiated through the room, disarming his apprehension momentarily. "You ready for this?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with an encouraging fire that rekindled his determination. I think so, he replied, though his voice lacked conviction. Don't think. Just do. Remember what we talked about? It's about making a connection. You've got this. Her presence was both grounding and electrifying. But the stark reality loomed over his apprehension. He wasn't merely standing in front of a group, he was exposing his ideas, his heart fearing the cracks that could splinter it all apart. As he arrived at the community center, the building felt both inviting and intimidating, reflecting the duality of his excitement and dread. The room was set, chairs artfully arranged, but the stillness pressed in on him. Jack took deep breaths, willing the adrenaline to shift into focus. He rehearsed his opening lines, striving to silence the internal battleground that raged within. Minutes rushed by, and participants began filtering in, some familiar faces, while others were strangers. With each greeting, he sensed the current intensifying. But as he engaged people, he discovered something unexpected. A warmth grew in the exchange like the bloom of spring after a harsh winter. Jack stepped up to the makeshift podium, glancing over the eager faces, and noticed something he hadn't anticipated: a shared sense of vulnerability among the crowd. They all bore hopes and fears, dreams and doubts, much like him. Anchoring his gaze in the eyes of those listening, he felt the stir within, igniting his spirit. As he spoke, weaving the narrative of their collective potential, Jack began to feel the chains of self-doubt loosening, the connection to the audience transforming fear into energy. He met their restless gaze with his own, inviting them to share not just their stories but their engagement in shaping a future together. But just as the momentum began to soar, a hand shot up at the back of the room. A skeptical voice broke through the rhythm, challenging his vision, questioning the feasibility of their plans. Tension rippled across the room as all eyes turned toward Jack. The challenge cut deep, exposing the softest underbelly of his ambitions. But rather than retreating into uncertainty, he faced it. You're right. There are risks, there always will be. But there are also possibilities. The adrenaline surged, and he leaned into the discomfort. If we let fear dictate our choices, we'll never know what we're capable of achieving together. His words hung in the air, an olive branch offered to the naysayer but also a challenge to himself. It was a declaration of resolve, an acknowledgement that he was, indeed, ready to embrace whatever consequences might follow. The workshop morphed into a dynamic exchange of ideas, questions, and insights. Jack witnessed a transformation. Within himself and the group, a palpable shift from hesitation to engagement as they delved deeper into the session. The fear he had harbored shifted into a well of anticipation, but could this high tide of connection sustain? As conversations unfolded and walls began to break down, Jack found himself in a state of heightened clarity, realizing that true leadership resided not merely within the execution of strategy but also within the ability to share a journey fraught with the risk of vulnerability. Yet, as he steered the workshop toward the end, he couldn't shake the haunting legacy of that challenging voice from earlier. Had he truly quelled the shadows of doubt, or had he merely polished over them with enthusiasm? The finishing moments felt electric, but a nagging instinct whispered that the day had only been a prelude. Would their shared trust be resilient enough to hold if faced with real challenges? As they wrapped up, Jack sensed a shift within him, but the undercurrent of uncertainty remained. The workshop ended, but his inner exploration was just beginning. A pressing realization tapped at the edges of his consciousness. The completion of today was merely the precursor to the greater struggles that lay ahead. What would he discover about himself when the enthusiasm dimmed, and reality poured back in? Jack stepped out of the community center, the sunlight enveloping him like a warm embrace, yet it did little to alleviate the chill of uncertainty lingering in his bones. The vibrant exchanges of the workshop felt like a distant echo, a wave that had receded before he could grasp its significance. As he made his way to his car, he replayed the day in his mind, a reel of moments both triumphant and precarious. Once inside, the silence of the vehicle amplified his thoughts, turning them into restless companions. He had faced his fears and led a successful workshop, yet, somehow, the victory felt ephemeral, like a sandcastle built at low tide. Real challenges were looming on the horizon, and despite his triumph today, Jack felt the surf of doubt rising again, threatening to wash away the foundations he had just laid. As he drove home, the road unwound before him, but it felt less like a journey forward and more like a meandering detour through a fog of hesitation. Was it enough to connect with a crowd, to inspire a few fleeting moments of engagement? The true measure of his success, he realized, wouldn't lie in the applause received but in what followed once the echoes of today faded. When he arrived home, he found Emily sitting outside on the porch, her legs curled beneath her as she watched the setting sun paint the horizon in riotous colors. Her figure was a comforting presence amidst his whirlpool of confusion. "How did it go?" she asked, her tone laced with genuine curiosity, igniting a flicker of enthusiasm within him. "It was good, I think," Jack replied, struggling to articulate the conflicting emotions within. "I managed to connect with them, but there was this one voice, a tough question that just wouldn't leave my mind." "What was it?" she prodded. He recounted the challenge from earlier, the way it had pierced through his confidence, and he sensed her disapproval as her brows furrowed. "You can't let one doubt drown out a room full of enthusiasm, Jack. You've planted a seed, and it'll grow," she encouraged, but her words held little weight against his inner monologue. For the next hour, they talked, Emily providing insights filled with unwavering optimism, yet Jack could sense another layer underneath, an expectation that he would hold firm. As she spoke, he found himself grappling with her faith in him, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down as he contemplated whether they were truly equipped to navigate the unpredictable territory they had begun to chart. That night, sleep eluded him. Jack lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, his mind a storm of possibilities and uncertainties. What lay next? The inevitable challenges that loomed like shadows? The thrill of potential morphing into anxiety that gnawed at his insides? He tossed and turned, and a nagging realization emerged: he had pulled the community from a place of stagnation, but was he prepared to carry the burden of expectations and setbacks that accompanied it? His thoughts sharpened, and a revelation struck him. It was time to confront the nature of his commitment. He would have to dig deeper into the vulnerabilities he had only begun to explore, transforming them from mere emotional weight into tools of strength. The question was how. The following morning, the sun glowed with renewed intensity, but Jack awoke feeling a curious blend of purpose and trepidation. The day demanded more than surface engagement. He had to confront the deeper implications of his journey and the extent to which he was willing to transform. He picked up his notepad and started outlining a plan not just for future workshops but for his own personal evolution. Which skills had he overlooked? What experiences from his past would he need to draw upon to face the inevitable contradictions ahead? Each stroke of the pen crystallized his thoughts, guiding him toward an understanding that leadership entailed not just courage but also continuous growth. But as he reflected, a flicker of doubt resurfaced. Had he pushed too hard too fast? As he packed his bag for the day ahead, he felt the weight of looming complexity swirl around him. Was he ready to fully expose the decisions he'd make, risking the very trust he sought to build with those now looking to him for guidance? Determined, he stepped out of the house, the path before him still uncertain but teeming with possibility. Yet as he headed out, a creeping anxiety whispered at him. Could he truly sustain this journey, and what revelations awaited him on the road ahead? The moment had arrived for him to confront his capabilities and decisions, and he felt it an urgent need to face what it truly meant to lead. And as he turned the key in the ignition, he braced himself for the challenges that lay just down the road. His transformation was about to begin. What he didn't yet know was that a formidable confrontation was waiting just down that very path, one that would force him to question everything he believed about leadership and self-acceptance. Jack arrived at the office with the same motivated resolve that had propelled him out of bed that morning. The familiarity of the desk was comforting, but there was an unsettling energy pulsing beneath the surface. Every piece of paperwork, every errant thought, felt heavy with unmade decisions and potential missteps. He could hear the faint buzz of conversations in the hallway, each murmur a reminder of the ebb and flow of expectations both from colleagues and himself. As he settled in, he grabbed his notebook, the pages filled with not only plans for future sessions but also a growing list of reflections he had begun to compile. The question of his leadership style weighed heavily on him. What type of leader did he aspire to be? The answer felt elusive, fluttering just out of reach. Perhaps it was time for a radical change, a shift in strategy that not only addressed the team's needs but also pushed him to confront his own insecurities. That he worked through the morning, the routine of calls and meetings providing a temporary distraction, but in the back of his mind, all he could think about was the looming confrontation both with himself and others. The question from the workshop echoed like a persistent drumbeat. Was he truly fit to lead? During lunch, he found himself seated with a few colleagues at a nearby cafe, their chatter blending with the sound of clinking dishes. A casual discussion turned serious when Maria, a sharp and insightful coworker, posed a question that snapped Jack out of his reverie. "Jack, how do you handle criticism?" The question was more than casual banter, it was a potential flashpoint. He scrutinized the faces of his colleagues, each one expectant. There was no veering away from honesty. "I suppose I've typically tried to avoid it," he replied, immediately regretting the admission. "But maybe I should be embracing it." "Embrace it? Why would you want that?" Greg shot back, raising an eyebrow. "Because," Jack paused, recalibrating his thoughts under the pressure of their scrutiny. "Maybe the only way to grow, to truly become a better leader, is to let those challenges into the mix." Maria leaned forward, intrigued. "And how does that fit into your current plans? Are you prepared for brutal feedback?" Jack felt the air grow tight between them, bearing down. The prospect of facing critical truths about himself layered, complex, and even unflattering was daunting. Yet it was coupled with an undeniable thrill. How better to solidify his place than to take the leaps he had only spoken of? Yet, a fear gnawed at the edges of his resolve. Were the motivations behind this change rooted in genuine growth, or simply a desperate attempt to silence his inner critic? When lunch ended, he returned to his desk with renewed purpose. The questions continued to swirl in his mind. He needed a framework to tackle this transition, not just for himself, but for the team. He began drafting a new agenda, one that included a feedback loop allowing team members to voice their observations and critiques. However, this thought led him to another unsettling realization. What if revealing vulnerabilities opened him to greater scrutiny? The notion of exposing his flaws proved unnerving. Would doing so erode their trust or strengthen their bond? As he scribbled furiously, the excitement of this new approach mixed with anxiety. It dawned on him that leadership was not about projecting an impenetrable facade, it was about being willing to share doubts and engage actively in growth, both personally and for those he intended to lead. Navigating this precarious balance between vulnerability and authority hung heavily on him as he considered launching this new initiative. Jack recognized he was at a crossroads, where success hinged on his willingness to embrace courage, but fear clutched at him as fiercely as anticipation tugged at the edge of his resolve. He glanced at the clock, knowing there wasn't much time left in the workday. It was time to make the leap. But when would he summon the courage to step into the unknown and welcome the tidal wave of feedback that threatened to wash over him? With his heart racing, he understood, leadership was not simply taking ownership of successes but embracing the depths of challenges. As he stood to gather his things, a voice echoed in his mind, instilling both fear and determination. Was he truly ready to confront his true self, and what would that confrontation reveal? The next day would demand his answer. Jack stood on the porch, the warm Texas sun casting a golden hue over the ranch, illuminating the years of legacy that lay beneath his feet. He felt the weight of the world on his shoulders, but for the first time, the heaviness felt slightly different. It was no longer shackled by fear but buoyed by potential. Months had passed since Emily's passionate pursuit sparked a journey he had never anticipated, a journey toward reconciling his deep-rooted attachment to the ranch with her aspirations to create a sanctuary for children. This morning, the air was thick with anticipation as he prepared for the grand opening of their first community workshop, an event that had been a product of intense collaboration and transformation. Jack's heart raced as he gazed at the barn, now repurposed with vibrant banners and flowing decorations, an inviting embrace for the community they hoped to inspire. Just months ago, the thought of deviating from tradition had felt insurmountable. Yet today, he was not only proud but also overflowing with purpose. He remembered the storms of doubt that once clouded his vision. The numerous hours spent grappling with financial logistics and meeting fierce scrutiny from peers felt like distant echoes. Only recently had he embraced a new mantra, that vulnerability inherently strengthened leadership. He had listened to feedback, learned from his missteps, and gradually transformed not just the ranch but himself. As people began to arrive, Jack felt the pulse of the community surrounding him. Each smile and conversation reinforced the vision he once feared to share. No longer was he a passive guardian of his family's legacy, he was an architect of change, embracing both his past and the future he was forging alongside Emily. With every handshake and nod, he could feel the layers of empowerment being woven into the fabric of the day. "Dad, are you ready?" Emily's voice cut through the pre-event buzz, grounding him in the present. "More than ready," Jack replied, brimming with newfound confidence. They exchanged knowing glances, a silent agreement that they would tackle whatever came their way. Together. As the workshop commenced, Jack took his place as the opening speaker. Standing before an audience filled with both familiar faces and newcomers, he felt an exhilarating rush, a stark contrast to the nervous trepidation he had once felt. The words flowed freely, laden with sincerity as he recounted the journey they had taken, not just to repurpose the ranch but to redefine its legacy. "Today isn't just about what we've built together, it's about embracing growth and courage," he declared, his voice steady. "We've faced criticism, challenges, and our own fears, but we've transformed them into stepping stones. This ranch isn't merely a piece of land, it's a living testament to our resilience, our dreams, and our commitment to each other." His message resonated deeply with the crowd. Jack left the stage emboldened by their applause, a genuine acknowledgement that what they were creating mattered. It was more than just a workshop, it was a community coming together to sow seeds of hope, possibility, and connection. After the workshop, Jack and Emily surveyed the joyful chaos, the laughter of children weaving their way through hands-on activities, adults engaged in spirited conversations, and newly formed connections. Jack marveled at it all, a deep sense of fulfillment welling up within him. "Do you see what we've done, Em?" Jack turned to Emily, his voice laced with awe. "Yes, we've created a bridge," she replied, her eyes glistening with pride. "And this is just the beginning." Jack nodded, fully comprehending the significance of her words. His journey had not only equipped him with clarity and purpose but had also woven a new legacy, a legacy of courage, collaboration, and community impact. As the sun began to set, casting golden rays on the ranch, Jack felt a profound contentment envelop him. The emotional turmoil of relinquishing control for the sake of dreams had yielded rewards he could have never imagined. He stood as a steward of this land, not merely preserving it but actively shaping it for the extraordinary potential yet to unfold. With a sense of fulfillment warming his heart, Jack stole a glance at Emily and the laughter of the children echoing around them. They were paving a new path, one that honored the past while inspiring a brighter future together as a family and a community. This was not merely a triumph for the ranch, it was a triumph for their souls. Jack realized he had conquered a mountain of doubt and emerged not just as a father but as a partner in an extraordinary realm of possibilities. His journey had reached a satisfying resolution, a moment of crystal clarity, a reaffirmation of their shared dreams, making the ranch not just a sanctuary of heritage but a vibrant hub of hope for generations to come. Don't wait even one more second to share this story. Show your support by hitting that like button now to feed the algorithm. You need to subscribe immediately to catch all the exclusive emotional stories lined up next. Comment below with your thoughts and theories about this powerful conclusion, and share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this amazing transformation unfold.